Welcome to Amazing Indiana Music Stories.
Well, Dave, when and where were you born and brought up?
I was born in Nashville, Tennessee. Lived there for till mid-60s, I think, and then moved up here. But yeah.
So, I'd like you to tell me a bit about your earliest musical influences.
My earliest. Well, it would probably be still in the womb, because my mother was the second oboist with the Nashville, Tennessee Symphony Orchestra at the time. And my understanding is through the whole concert, the conductor kept looking at her out of the corner of his eye, and apparently it was just a few hours after that I made my presence in the world. So that's my first experience with music, is, from pre-birth, I guess.
I see. So you come from quite a musical family then?
Well, my father too, he finally did get it, but at the time he was studying for his PhD in music and theory and composition. So music was everywhere. You'd go by the den and he'd be in there pounding on something, writing something, writing something. He liked to do some composition stuff too. So that was pretty much what I grew up with.
So how did you find yourself in Indiana?
My dad got a job at Butler. And so, being underage, I had to follow my parents here. So that's how I ended up in Indiana, over around the Butler area. So I grew up in that part of town.
So it seems like music played a big role in your early life. So
Oh yeah, as soon as I could stand up and make a sound, I was singing in a church choir, because my mom was an organist and my dad was the choir director. So I wasn't really given much of a choice. So most of my musical background is more on the classical side of things, and a lot of that with a lot of church choirs and that type of thing. But then I did all the other usual instruments, played violin when I was 6, and gave that up when I was 7 because people made fun of me as a little kid playing violin. Played sax in junior high, and that's when I took up bass and had my first band in 7th grade, what we called Section 8. That's what we call ourselves. No, Section 5, that's right, there were 5 of us. Some guys from church, and we were the house band for School 80 for a while, because that's where I went to 86, but the other guys went to School 80, so we were like, if they had anything going on at all, they always called us, which is kind of cool when you're in 8th grade, so. And then high school had a band, and then just kind of drifted off from that.
I see. So with this background, how did it shape your future career and relationships?
Well, I've always done music in one form or another. Got interested in a lot of more mechanical and electronic stuff, and so my career kind of went that direction. I got into field service, which doesn't really allow you time to be in a band. So what I got into more then is I fell in love with the mandolin and started playing that. That's almost 30 years ago now, and got involved with a group called the Central Indiana Folk Music and Mountain Dulcimer Society. And to an extent, they're a little bit similar to this Indiana Music History Project in the fact that what we try and do is keep all the older songs alive. I mean, Civil War songs, other things like that. So I've always been involved in trying to keep music history going, because it's really cool. And I mean, I learn every time I hang out with a new group of musicians, I learn some other kind of music history that I didn't know that's really cool. So that's a lot of what I've been doing, and some promoting, a little bit it's been going for 10 years now, but I told you about being into the mandolin. I'm going to walk backwards a little bit history-wise. There was a group in town called Mandolindy for several years, and we were actually a mandolin orchestra. I mean, we played classical pieces and all this kind of stuff, and we had the Midwest Mandolin Festival for probably about 6 or 7 years. And then the group broke up. And after about another 3 or 4 years, I couldn't stand not having a festival. And I know a lot of people down in Metamora, Indiana, down over there by Brookville and Cincinnati, that part of the state. And they have a great performing arts program there. So I approached them, and they agreed to do this. We have started the Metamora Mandolin Gathering that was going to, local teachers and that type of thing. And we didn't know if it would get off the ground or not. Last year was our 10th year. So and I'm real proud to be in on the ground floor with that. And I've done some other booking. They have festivals down in Metamora, and I've booked some of the stages for that. Don't play a lot anymore. I've been more on that. There's too many good musicians out there that when I play with them, it's like, no, we'll just let you do this. But like I said, I played bass in high school, and just recently I've got the bug again. So I've picked up a bass, and I'm now playing in a band that does 60s, 70s, and 80s music. So you just do it, You just do, and you do it when you can, and you do what you feel, which is the fun part of it. And you do it when you want to, at least in my situation, not really being tied down to anything, and that's a lot of fun.
I can just tell how passionate you are about it. And how did you get involved with this project? There
were a couple of friends, and I'm not exactly sure how they found out about it, but a gentleman named Frank Watson, who's been very busy, very active for a lot of years here in town, musically and socially and that type of thing. And he brought it up to me one time, and Tom Probasco, a friend of his, he said, let's go check it out sometime. And he got in touch with Rick, gentleman that started all this, and he said, sure, I can use volunteers. So we showed up, we liked the project, and we're here all the time doing stuff, which is fun. Some of the things you see that people donate and that kind of things are just really cool stuff.
So since you're involved with 2 organizations that aim to preserve music history, why is that so important to you?
Because it's your life. Everybody grows up with music. I mean, I don't care who you are. You can't say you don't grow up with music, because it's all around you. Just sounds can make music. So part of it is, well, this is what I grew up with. And then this is what my older brother grew up with, and then this is what my mom grew up with, and that kind of thing, and hear how it's progressed, and actually some of it come full circle. Some of the things, ink spot type stuff, there's bands out doing that now that are filling clubs, so it's cool to see all that come back around again, and that's only because of the history. If they had never heard the ink spots, they wouldn't be doing them now, and so that's really cool.
That really is. So, is there anything else you'd like to add, or are there any stories from growing up with such musical parents? Did you have any experiences that other kids may not have gotten to be involved with your father's work? Did you ever get to sit in on classes or meet musicians he worked with?
My father passed when I was fairly young, like 8th grade. So there's not necessarily a lot of stuff we did, but he did write some short little operettas, and I got to be in one of them. I had like 2 lines to sing and 1 line to say, I guess, and that was probably when I was 7 or 8, and that's probably the only thing along that. But as an adult, one thing that I was very fortunate to do is with the church choir things I was doing. They were going to Paris to perform, and this is one of my few paying jobs. They actually covered my expenses to go with them because they needed people to sing, and they didn't have enough tenors. So that was one of my favorite things. I got to go to Europe for free and sing in a huge cathedral and that type of thing. We did a couple of concerts, and that's something, adult, child, anything else. That's just, there's no other experience like that.
Wow. So, speaking of family and everything, how has your passion for music influenced your children, grandchildren, the people you choose to spend time with?
Well, for quite a few years we had the Slates family band, which was my brother and his wife, and my wife, and myself, obviously, and occasionally our daughter, and she played violin, and she played with us for a while, and she played with us while she was pregnant with our first granddaughter. And we had a band practice shortly after she was born, and she's sitting there with her little plastic egg, tapping it to the beat of the song at like 6 months old, because her, her mom had been playing in the band, and so that's that. I think that was an influence, when she came out that early with that. She was a trumpet player, because you always take up an instrument in grade school, but that's about where her musical interest ends. So I think my brother and I are the last of that line.
That's incredible. It's in her DNA.
Yeah.
So, I guess, other than, your parents, what other music was influencing you as a kid? Were you listening to what was popular?
Well, I think the first music I probably bought was Beatles, because we just moved up here, and I can remember I had a little monaural turntable and a little tube amp and a 12-inch speaker, and I'd sit there in my room and listen to the Beatles music. Then as I got older, my brother kind of directed me a little bit. Like I remember one year for Christmas, he bought me Crosby, Stills and Nash and Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And he goes, "Here, you need to listen to these." And actually my mother, being a classical musician, she loved Emerson, Lake and Palmer. When they came out with the Copeland thing, it's Pictures at an Exhibition, that's not Copeland, but she loved that. And she loved that they were taking stuff and doing that with it. But I mean, that's kind of, and then there was Hendrix and, the Who and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of went both sides. Of course, my mom preferred when I listened to ELP rather than the Who, and she didn't like when I put on Zappa records, but that's kind of understandable.
Yeah. Any notable concerts or any favorite concerts or artists that you saw perform in Indiana or Indianapolis?
Well, that actually gets back to Emerson, Lake and Palmer. There was a concert over in Crawfordsville, and this is probably around 1970. And the opening act was Humble Pie. And then Emerson, Lake and Palmer came on, and they played their first album. And the only time they talked to the audience all night is they came up and said, "We've recorded a new album. It's called Tarkus. We'd like to play it for you now," and proceeded to do their whole second album. And then the actual headliner for the show, Johnny Winter, came out. And he had Rick Derringer with him. As people know Johnny Winter, they know who Rick is. And it was, finally about 3:30 in the morning, the school said, "No, you're running too late. You got to shut it down." But that probably is the first time I ever heard a stereo PA system. And so it was really, for me, a really milestone concert, I guess. And then, of course, I've seen Mellencamp and Clapton and all those other people too, but that's the most impressive one.
Wow. Oh, we could talk for hours. So much awesome stuff.
Well, and some of this runs in the family too. I should mention my brother is a very, I think he's dropping out of it now, but he's a very important part of the Indiana folk series, Indianapolis folk series. Plus, way back in the day of some of these bands we're talking about in the 70s and stuff, he actually had a booking agency, booked several bands, well-known bands around town and stuff. So, we got something from that side too. He knows. You'd have to talk to him more on the business side. I'm more of the player. But so it runs in the family. We're both busy doing that.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk about, maybe about your career or bands you're in now, or
Like I said, I play when I want to play. I'm in a band now, and that's nice to have the structure of a band, and getting back into bass playing and really starting to enjoy it again, and that's a lot of fun because off one another, the bass player can control the band. The bass player and the drummer, the ones they always make fun of, those are the guys who really control the band, and I see somebody nodding. But that's a lot of fun. But just I do a lot of jamming too, and that's what I like to do. I play out occasionally. People ask me to come play with them. But at a certain point, playing in the band doesn't matter. Just going out and actually just playing the music. So I might go someplace one week and it might be a Celtic jam, and we're playing Irish music, which I am lousy at, but it's fun to go listen to these guys who are really good at it do it, and then maybe go to a folk jam the next week or a bluegrass jam, that type of thing. Mandolin, except for Yank Rochelle, doesn't necessarily lend itself to blues quite as much, so I don't hit that up too much, but that's what I do. So I get to I've got the organization of the band, but I've got the freedom just to go out and play what I feel like playing, and not obligated to anybody to actually, you got to play this part or you got to play that part. You actually just get to play music, and that's the most fun about it. And that's what I do now.
Did you have a different perspective when you were playing in, I'm assuming, around the Indianapolis area as a young person in high school and fresh up? Well,
we didn't play out that much. We were probably like a third or fourth tier band. Who do we want to call? Well, they're like third or fourth on the list. So, we did a lot of little coffee house kind of things and that kind of stuff. So we never really did anything huge, but there's a certain amount of business to it that I didn't necessarily like. Like I said, my brother was into that, so we let him take care of the business side of things. And then, like I said, a lot of years I wasn't even playing because I was, following careers. And then we got back with the Slates family band, and we just did a lot of farmers markets, and we got in with some of the Fishers and a couple other places, and would do like their Christmas parties and some things like that. Some really fun stuff without really having to try and be a working band and make money on it. Because, I've made thousands of pennies doing this. I've been able to afford at least one pair of strings, and that's kind of how it is for an amateur musician. But most of the guys are out there playing because they just love playing music.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
If you could direct your interest so that way after I ask, but why do you think Indiana music history is important, and why do you think it's important that we're cataloging all of these stories?
Well, I think everybody's history is important to a certain degree, just like family history. I think it's important because, like, some of these guys I went to high school with, and it's what I lived through high school. I mean, I probably roadied for some of these bands. And so it's just like you have memories of your childhood growing up, or stories you've been told by your grandparents and that kind of stuff that really do, because of my interest in music, I do want to know what those guys were doing 20 and 30 years ago. And I want my kids to be able to see that, and my grandkids to be able to see, okay, this is where we've come, and this is, if you want to do it, just because you're from Indiana doesn't mean you can't. Which is, Indiana's not always considered all that great of a place, but we had a ton of talent come out of here, and there's still a ton of talent here. And I think that's mostly, just like with Dulcimer Society, just sustaining the history. And with Dulcimer Society, a lot of it's oral history. And if you don't get that, if you don't record those stories, you just, you can play a song, but a lot of times if you can't find the history of that song, what's it truly about, why did the person write that song, then you've lost a lot. It's just a good tune. So that's where the history comes in important.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for your time and your stories.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure to be here.